Hello everyone, today I will be informing you about the Dakota War of 1862. This war plays a very significant part of the United States history along with the Minnesotan history. What was this event? The war took place in Minnesota on the date of August 17, 1862. The Dakota War involved the United States government versus the Dakota people of the Minnesota area. Why did this terrible war start in the first place? All throughout Minnesota, many Dakota's people were looking for a food source. That year, the crop was not very good and they took a beating when it came to farming. They also had to compete with the European Americans who were around that area, which was a scramble for food sources. The United States government also played a major role in starting the war. Throughout the 1850s, the United States and the Dakota tribe created a treaty between them that would settle the food shortage along with other major improvements. Later, agents of the Minnesota government denied the right of the accesses of their payments of money and food, which led to starvation for many. While the treaty was broken, the United States government also created another hardship for the Dakota tribe. The United States only supported those who supported the government, which then they would receive their supplies that they needed to stay alive. Then the summer of 1862 came around. Many families were desperate for supplies such as food and other material, and the government wasn't meeting their needs as the treaty stated. All these points led up to a terrible turn of events. Then, the date of August 18, 1862, a band of 4 Dakota men went out and killed 5 European American settlers. After this, a group of Dakota men gathered to speak about the situation. Then they finally came up with the idea of going to war with the Americans to gain their own land back. Dakota was one of the leaders in charge and was convinced with a strong mindset of dying for his own people. The next day, things got worse. The Dakota people started fighting and killing many civilians of the Lower Sioux Agency. This war kept on lasting day after day, with multiple bands of Dakota people fighting the European Americans throughout the land of Minnesota, along with attacking a U.S. military post. The total death of the civilians and the U.S. soldiers accumulated to about 600 people, along with about 75 to 100 Dakotas losing their own lives. On September 26, 1862, the Dakota people finally surrendered. During this period, cases of many Dakotas were processed with while some were tried, sentenced to death, and given prison sentences. Then President Lincoln stepped in and reviewed all the men's transcripts to decide what was next. The official ending was on December 26, 1862, when 38 Dakota prisoners were lined up for execution. Many people lined up the streets to see the execution of the men, while the prisoners sang a song while waiting for the ending of their lives and holding on to each other's hands for peace. The men then were buried and left for many to think about the stunning situation. In summary, the Dakota War of 1862 was a devastating loss for the Dakota tribes. The United States government and the Dakota were always in disagreement the whole time while being treated poorly. War broke out and ended multiple people's lives. That concludes my Powtoon. Are there any questions?
Created using Powtoon.